Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer. We are opening up our source material right now to look at an absolutely epic, true story. It's this deep dive into a hero who walked a very, very lonely path to pull off the greatest mission imaginable, literally saving the entire world. It's a story all about carrying a weight that nobody else could possibly carry, and we're going to break down exactly what that means through the analysis we have prepared for you today.
So I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to do a really hard chore all by yourself with absolutely no help? Imagine tackling something like cleaning out a massive, messy garage or picking up hundreds of scattered toys and everyone else is just watching you. Or even worse, totally ignoring you. It feels pretty lonely and frustrating, right? Keep that exact feeling in your mind. Now I want you to multiply that feeling by 1,000,000. Imagine tackling a massive responsibility, a mission to literally save the world completely alone. That relatable feeling of doing a hard chore solo, well, that's just a tiny glimpse into the ultimate mission we're exploring today.
Section 1. A very heavy burden. We're about to look at the massive responsibility Jesus carried. And according to the text, this wasn't just some heavy load he carried for a bad weekend or a stressful month. The source tells us he walked this lonely path from the time he was a child, straight through his youth and all the way into manhood. Our source material anchors this idea of deep isolation with a really powerful quote from the book of Isaiah, chapter 63, verse 3. It says, "I have trodden the winepress alone, and of the people there was none with me." Just let that sink in for a moment. None with me. The text uses this ancient imagery to emphasize just how deeply isolated he felt. When it came to the absolute hardest work, he was completely solo.
And what exactly was that work? What was this massive burden? It was the ultimate responsibility, saving the human race. The text points out that Jesus knew something terrifying. He knew that unless there was a decided, complete change in the principles and purposes of the human race, well, absolutely everyone would be lost. Imagine carrying the weight of the entire world's future right on your shoulders, knowing that if you fail, everyone is lost. That makes this literally the heaviest burden ever carried in the history of the world.
To really get why carrying this burden was so painful, we need to look at a very specific word the source uses: transgression. What does that actually mean? A transgression is simply breaking a rule or a law. Doing something wrong. The text tells us that because Jesus was the sinless one, every single transgression, every wrong thing, every piece of discord in the world was actual torture to his spirit. It wasn't just annoying or sad. Being surrounded by rule-breaking and vileness deeply, deeply hurt him on the inside.
Section 2. Misunderstood by everyone. Now there's a whole new level to this loneliness. You might think that even if the whole world was against him, at least his friends and family had his back, right? Well, the source reveals something truly heartbreaking about his mission.
Who failed to understand his mission? His mother, his brothers, his closest disciples. Think about that for a second. The absolute closest people in his life. It highlights the extreme loneliness of having your own family and your very best friends completely miss the point of what you're trying to achieve. The text explicitly says they did not comprehend his mission. He's standing there carrying the weight of the entire world, and the people sitting right next to him just didn't get it.
This really illustrates how massive the shock of this loneliness must have been. On one hand, we see his heavenly past. The source text describes this past as dwelling in eternal light, as one with God. He was a peace lover, surrounded by total truth and purity. But then, on the other hand, we see his earthly reality. Down here on earth, he had to deal with solitude, strife, falsehood, and vileness. He went from a perfect heavenly team to a dark, lonely earthly reality where he had to bear the burden of guilt and woe. The contrast is absolutely staggering.
Section 3. The hero's steadfast purpose. Now, despite that massive contrast, the narrative totally shifts here. This is where the story transforms from one of deep sadness into one of awe-inspiring courage. We get to see exactly how he approached this seemingly impossible, lonely mission. The text tells us something pretty amazing. It says he laid off his glory and accepted the weakness of humanity. He willingly chose to put aside his heavenly superpowers, so to speak, to face this epic challenge as a human, completely alone. And why would he do that? Because, as the source explains, the redemption of the world had to rest entirely upon him. He saw the pain, he felt the isolation, but his purpose remained completely steadfast. The text reminds us that he absolutely refused to give up on humanity.
So how did he find the strength to keep going when he felt so weak and so alone? The secret lies in the word omnipotent. It means having unlimited power, being able to do absolutely anything. The source text explains that to save the fallen race, Jesus reached out his hand to grasp the hand of omnipotent love. So even in his human weakness, he connected to a power that could do absolutely anything to ensure the mission was a success.
Section 4. Showing our appreciation today. Let's pivot and see how this all builds into something we can take action on right now. We've learned about the heavy burden, the total misunderstanding, and his steadfast courage. Now, the explainer turns to us. How do we respond to a hero who walked that solitary path?
The source shares this really poignant detail about the disciples' regret. It tells us that when Jesus was no longer with them, they began to see how they might have shown him attentions that would have brought gladness to his heart. They realized, way too late, that they totally missed the chance to support him and cheer him on when he was lonely. They lived with that regret. But the author reminds us that we do not have to make that same mistake. That same want, that same need for appreciation, it still exists today.
The text outlines very clear, actionable steps for us. Step 1. Express great love. The source gives the awesome example of Mary, who didn't hold back but freely bestowed a beautiful gift to show her love. Step 2. Practice self-denial. Step 3. Make sacrifices for his sake. The text makes a really powerful statement here. Because of what he did, nothing should be thought too costly to give up for Christ. We can show our appreciation today by simply choosing to put him and others before ourselves.
And that brings us to a really important question I want to leave you with. What will you choose to give up today to show your appreciation for his sacrifice? Think about practicing just a little bit of self-denial in your own life right now. Maybe it's giving up a tiny bit of your playtime to help a sibling, or maybe it's choosing to do a hard chore without complaining about it. You actually have the power to show your appreciation for the ultimate hero's lonely mission today. Thank you so much for joining me as we explored this incredible text, and I really hope it leaves you with a lot to think about.